Welcome, everybody, to episode 21 of Facts on the Ground. Our guest today is Dr. Essam Daod. He's a Palestinian psychiatrist, psychotherapist, medical doctor, and human rights activist who currently resides in Haifa, Israel. Is that correct?
Yeah.
In 2015, Essam and his wife, Maria Jamal, founded Humanity Crew, which is an international aid organization that, as its website has stated, quote, deploys mental health and psychosocial support to displaced populations in order to improve their mental health and well-being, to restore order in their lives, and to prevent further psychological escalation. The bulk of Humanity Crew's work focuses on the Mediterranean region, where migrants and refugees from the Middle East, in particular, have been fleeing their homes for relative safety in Europe for nearly 10 years now. And in 2018, Essam became the first ever Palestinian citizen of Israel to be inducted into the TED Fellows program, TED as in TED Talks, and he delivered a very powerful talk during that year's flagship conference, TED 2018. We'll link to that in the show notes. And because both mainstream media and independent media have only sporadically reported on the so-called European migrant and refugee crisis over the past decade, and because their coverage of the ongoing catastrophe has dwindled to almost nothing at this point, it's vital and really good to have Essam on so that we can give an update and deconstruct the crisis with what's actually happening, what Essam has witnessed on the ground. So, Essam, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone.
So,
before we get started talking about Humanity Crew, can you just kind of give everybody a little bit of a background and how you got started kind of in advocating and working for this, for the mental health of refugees?
As just said at the beginning, we started in 2015. Me and my wife, we traveled to Greece. It was the beginning of so-called the European immigrant crisis, and we actually, I don't know if we can say this, like in the it's a good time to be there, or it's the right time to be there as a psychiatrist, as a former surgeon. I would prefer that these times wouldn't happen, but we were there when everything really, we can say, started with massive numbers and suffering and deaths almost every day, with an average of 8,000 people arriving every day, fleeing the war in the Middle East. And we witnessed there, and we experienced a lot of things, even like for us, even for me as a psychiatrist, a former surgeon, a medical doctor, a Palestinian, ex-refugee. You think that you saw everything and you are like resilient and you are okay, but even for me, with all the amount of suffering and death that I witnessed there, our well-being, it wasn't the same after this experience. And I can say that, each time they ask me this question, I think I answer it differently, because I think it's many reasons why I'm doing this. So now my answer is that it was my drive to not be post-traumatic stress disorder, like not to be suffering from PTSD, which I actually diagnosed with when I came back, and it was this kind of healing process, or decision that I took with my therapist, that I want this to be my post-traumatic growth. I actually want to grow from this bad experience and not to be, not functioning or having, disorders or taking pills or So this is, you can say that at the beginning, personal drive of wanting me and my wife to heal and to recover from what we saw at the first mission we did as individuals in October 2015.
Can you talk about some of the things you experienced on that first trip? Because as I mentioned before we started recording, you and I conducted an interview back in the summer of 2018, and you described on that first trip and as you said, sort of how traumatizing it was. What were you seeing when you got there?
I like when you ask the question, like the first thing, it comes to me really my first 5 minutes maybe in the island. I remember that I arrived there and I was doing check-in. Maria arrived a few days before me. Long story. We split when I arrived. She told me when after 2 days when I arrived to the island, go to the north side where whereas the boats are coming. I will be here, like translating, helping people in the camps and in the hospital in Mytilene, which is like the capital city of the Greek Lesbos. And she told me to go to the north of the island, where is in Skala and Molivos, like small fishing towns, in the front of the Turkish coastline, where most of the refugees arrive there, and then they walk all the way to Mytilene to do the registration and to go to the camps. And when I came, I didn't really expect to be working as a surgeon. You know, I left surgery a couple of years before, and I become like a child psychiatrist. I was in the middle of my residency in a psychoanalytic school, and etc. So when Maria told me this, I said, like, come on, like I was prepared to come and do my work as a psychiatrist. She said, no, like these people are dying there. You need to go there. And I found myself doing, you know, the check-in in like a small motel next in the beach, which was full of grassroots, even it's not called grassroots organization, because then they become like individuals, good individuals from Europe who came to help. Mm-hmm. And then the woman who owned the place, she told me, I will add you to the WhatsApp group that we just create here, all the people who live in this motel and also the volunteers and stuff like this. And so she added me to this group, and after like 5 seconds, maybe less, I received there was a message in this group asking for a doctor to Kaya Beach. I asked her, where is Kaya Beach? She said it's like in the other side of this coastline. It's like if you want to go, if you have 4x4, it's like 30 minutes. And if it's like a regular car, you need to go all around, so it's like 45 minutes, something like this. I said, okay, so if doctor needed and it's like half an hour, so it's not emergency, I can't reach it now, and so most probably someone else will be there. And I saw that I finished the check-in. I was like putting my stuff in the room, and they kept asking for doctor and more requests. And I saw that there's some kind of panic inside this group that there's actually no doctor. And then I realized that actually was maybe the only one who was there as a medical. It was like were some few who weren't in the same area. They are not allowed to go to the coastline. They work like in like some kind of reception camps and in the both sides of the shoreline. So at the end I say, okay, nothing can do, so I have to go. So I drive the Jeep, and I was asking locals where's the Kaya Beach, and at the end, after really like something 25-30 minutes, I found it, and it was like very surrealistic. I remember entering the Jeep bay, really at the end of this coastline was the lighthouse. It was raining, October, like dark, a lot of clouds. I parked the Jeep, and during my way in the last like few miles, I saw a lot of people walking, like refugees walking out. from this area. And when I arrived, I saw something like, I think, 2 families or 1 big family, Arab, next to the trees, and it was raining. Few aid workers going around like they're not okay, and a 60 plus lady that already lost, like she's not alive, she was dead, still on the beach, and the waves still hit her, and her son was next to her, like just crying and looking at her. So I came there and I introduced myself to the aid workers, and I say, "Hi, my name is Essam Daod. I'm a doctor." And then they say, "Oh God, do something." This lady, I say, "Oh, okay, she's dead. You know, I don't even need to come close to her. So let's just give her some respect, take her out." And they say, "No. We are waiting for the doctor." I say, "I am the doctor. I tell you, she's dead. So let's help me like contain this situation and help the person." And no, don't touch her. We are waiting for the doctor. And I go to another volunteer and another volunteer, and all of them did the same reaction, like, "Don't touch her. If you don't want to do CPR, so don't touch her until a doctor comes." And then I go to her son and I say in Arabic, "Marhaba, assalamu alaikum, kif halak, what's your name?" He say, "Abu Hassan, marhaba Abu Hassan, my name is Essam." And I ask him like, "I'm sorry for your loss." He said, "What loss? We are waiting for the doctor." I said, like, "I am the doctor, like, your mom is dead." And she said, no, we are waiting for the doctor." And I stand up and I remember myself in the middle of this, and I was like, I think I even cried that, and it was raining. I said, "God, what I'm doing here?" Like, I'm like 1,000 miles from my home, like, what I should do now? Like, I am by myself. And why I was like doing like this, I remember a kid who was one of part of this family, was the grandson of this old woman. He was under the tree with his mom, and he was looking at me, and I felt like he's begging me to stop this. Like, "Stop this, do something, like, please, like, I can't handle it." And I say, "Oops, like, there's babies and kids here. I need to do like, you know, it's like, okay, you can't be another one who is like panicking around." I remember a situation when I was in my residency as a surgeon, that, you know, sometimes you know that this person is DNR, like, do not resuscitate, like, you don't do CPR, just make him, like, give him, you know, to respect his last few days when the situation is really bad, like. And we remember that even though he was DNR and the family knows that, at the department, we used to go to his room and to make like we are doing a CPR, and then to go out and tell the family that we did everything and we lost him. We actually didn't do anything. And the family asked from us before not to do anything, and also the patient, like, it's not we are lying to anyone, but this kind of, you know, acting that with all of this, we are running inside, closing the door and going out saying he's dead, it was needed for the people. And I need to do something like this. These people are waiting for a doctor almost an hour. And after that, I even understand that she lost her life inside the boat, and she came to Greece already dead. And then I found myself like asking who can, you know, use the ambo for ventilation, and someone say yes, and I say, "Okay, come on." He was not actually doing this right, but I said doesn't care. And I found myself doing a CPR to a dead body. And I don't want to, you know, make more explanation what that means when someone is already dead. And I found myself like I was crying and like in hysteria, like I couldn't do it. I don't know if I did it for 15 minutes, 1 hour, or even two seconds maybe. I lost, like, when I start doing this with all, I lost it. And then I stopped and I said, "Okay, there is nothing to do. She's dead." And it was very like funny, sad. I don't know how to actually to describe this, but then everyone was, oh, she's dead. Okay, let's take care of the family. And everyone start being functioning. Even the son, like, oh, mom, I lost you. And okay, what's next? And I said, like, what? Like, I'm like telling you this for the last half an hour. Like what I did. Then I understand that actually my first CPR it was a CPR for the soul and the mind of the aid workers, the volunteers, and the refugees. And it's something that I understand, I think maybe a year after that this is what I did. Like one of my interviews, they asked me, what's your first thing that you remember? Then I remember this story. So I didn't like, then I realized that actually was the first thing I saw. And it was like a message from, for me. It takes me time until I went back being a psychiatrist or a mental health professional, when like I was stuck with all the real CPRs I did there afterwards. But yes, this was the first thing I remember.
Yeah, sorry to make you relive it, but I just wanted to give people some context, viewers some context into just how, for lack of a better word, crazy the migrant and refugee situation is. Just how often and how brutally people are dying, drowning in the life or the dinghies themselves, that fill with water and they're overcrowded and people get stuck and end up drowning in the actual boat. So,
and as horrific as it is, like Jesse mentioned earlier, especially in the West, the media doesn't cover this. People in the United States aren't exposed to the seriousness of the refugee crisis and what they face. So a lot of people are genuinely clueless about what's going on in these situations. So I mean, like Jesse said, it's terrible to make you have to talk about these things over and over again. But I think people really need to understand how bad it is and how much help is needed. So we really do appreciate you being willing to talk about these things. I know it can't be easy. But so much of what I love about what your group does is I'm a mom. So and the fact that you focus so much on, helping the children, because I can't imagine being a mother and trying to make that journey with your children. And, you're already leaving this horrific environment, of war and, terror and just absolute fear. And you're leaving everything you've ever known behind for something where you have no idea where you're headed, and you're just trying to save your family. But can you talk a little bit about why it's so important that somebody is there on the shores to greet these kids, and how it helps to kind of alter the mental impression that they have in those moments?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. The children in this situation and on all situations that involve trauma are, in one side, the most vulnerable group, but in the other side are the most promising in terms of healing and recovery group. There is a lot of damage that can happen, but there is a lot of chances that if you do the right thing on the right time, that these children will be with almost zero impact, like negative impact. And I all the time use this kind of comparison with trees. Us, when we go through a traumatic event, it's like a big tree with a very strong roots. So you have like a hurricane or a very strong winds. So some of our branches will be broken and stuff. And next spring, most probably the tree will be okay. But children, you can compare them to like a small bush. And if something happened like this, it's actually because of their roots still not very strong, they can be actually totally destroyed. But on the other hand, if you just if you are there and you just treat this bush very quickly, it will be healed because, it's still a bush, so it can grow up. And that's why, in one hand, it's very, it's very dangerous and a lot of bad things can happen to the children. But on the other hand, there's a lot of things to do. And that's why we focus on almost all groups of like ages, but we try to focus as much as we can in kids because of the high potential of damage, and on the other side, the high potential of recovery and healing. So and you can do this only if you are close as much as you can to the trauma when it happens, in location and also in time. Because when a traumatic event happens, and it's important to everything, it's even important to our kids who have been hit by a car, or about a hurricane, flood, any traumatic event that happened to our children, including also displaced populations. So if we can do an intervention right next to the traumatic event, we actually help the children to process this event. Because a traumatic event, by definition, is something that is very surprising, threatening our life and our well-being, and it's not expected. And and that's why it's overwhelmed for us and had some kind of bad impact on us. So for children, they don't have our cognitive ability and experience in life, and we have a lot of outside resources that we know how to use, and inner resources as adults. Children didn't really, until now, develop these kind of coping mechanism and resources, and they don't have even the basic availability as a cognitive ability to understand things. So when things like this happen, like trauma and a traumatic event, they are like in some kind of freezing, like they don't understand. It's like too much information that entered to the computer, like the small processor, and he's freezing now. So if we don't do anything, then all of this information will go down to the memory, and it will be stored there as fragments of memories. The screaming, the smell of the sea, the face of my mother while she was crying, the blood going out from a head of someone, and all of this. And then in the future, doesn't matter when, sometimes days, weeks, months, until up to 30 years, as we know in literature, any kind of reminders that we don't know which reminders, it will activate these kind of, memories. And then we have some kind of reactivation. But the thing is, when you reactivate one of these memories, it comes with the feel of fear and agitation and short of breathness and all of this. And this is actually what I just described now. It's PTSD. This is the post-traumatic stress disorder. It's an activation of unprocessed traumatic event that we have as a one fragment. So it's, if we compare this to a desktop of a computer, it's like you have a lot of folders on your desktop. All of this have some kind of memories from one experience. So if you are there, you can actually help the kid to process this. You will be his outside resource. You will be his cognition now that will provide him, the ability to understand and to cope with everything. And then he will store this as one memory, like one folder in the desktop. And if you activate this in the future, it will be activated because we don't forget anything, then it will activate everything, the good and the bad. It will activate the funny moments when they were in the sea, and they will activate the joy and the happiness when they arrived. It will activate the face of the nice lady that hugged them when they arrived to Greece, and it also will activate the fear and the cry and the scream. But then there's a bad and a good memories in the same folder, in the same memory that was stored in their brain. So if we help them to create this kind of narrative, then it's perfect. Then you help them. So this is what we start to do. Then we say, okay, if I'm actually creating this or helping the kids to establish this, so why I just don't make in purpose adding more and more good things to this folder? Let's add good things. Let's add laugh, music, and good smells, and hugs, and give good stories, and etc. And this is how we found ourselves actually helping the kids create a different narrative, a narrative of being a hero, a narrative of being the hero kid who crossed the sea, or the hero kid who just had to, succeed to fight the big waves, or to fight the smugglers, and etc. And then we found that kids, that you help them to establish this. We don't provide this narrative. We explore this narrative with them. We ask them a question, like something like, do you think that you are a hero? Because only heroes in my eyes can cross the sea. Truly, I'm not lying. I think only heroes can cross the sea. I can't cross the sea. So he will think about it. And then another question. And then he will create his own narrative about being a hero. So this is why it's important. Then you actually not only prevent these kids from developing post-traumatic stress disorder, or anxiety, or depression, or any kind of psychological damage in the future, you also did what I at the end did to myself. Instead of being post-traumatized, I just took this to a place that it become a post-traumatic growth. And this is what I realized later, that actually I'm trying to make them grow from this experience, not just only to prevent the damage. And I think it's possible, and we see that this is possible. The problem is it's very hard to do it, not in terms of techniques or people who want to do it. It's in terms of policy, in terms of awareness. Like every year, I think that we did it, or when people are very exciting from my talk, or I did it's very, and in the end you have like some kind of illusion that it's like now everyone understands the importance of first response mental health intervention. And then I found myself a month ago in Lesbos, the same island, after I had a mission in Samos, in an island next to Lesbos. Then there was a huge fire, I don't know if you heard about, in Moria, which is the biggest camp in Europe, and he was totally destroyed, and 13,000 people were with no shelters, and it was a catastrophe. And I took the first airplane and fly to Lesbos, and I started working there. And my biggest fight there was with my friends, with NGOs that I'm working with my partners, that they didn't see the importance of my work. I say, God, you were the one who shared my post, and you were like talking about me and using my services, and now like, no, Essam, it's not time, come, let's distribute food, blah, blah. And I say, it's important, but this is the time that we need to work. Then I was saying, look, hey man, this volunteer is not okay. No, he's working hard, he's like, and then I found myself after 1 week that I can't work like this. I just took the team and went back home. And I think a day after, really just the 24 hours after I left, I start receiving messages. Hey Sam, we need an emergency assessment for one of volunteers. He just collapsed and he wanna suicide. He's like someone who hurt himself, or I can't. There's kids and like both sides, also the volunteers and also the refugees collapse. And I see why we were there. And also the authorities, and everything's closed down. Now we're so happy that sometimes that there's good things of COVID-19, that things went to be like a lot online. And now it's like with the online thing, you can actually penetrate these camps on walls and etc. So now we are starting a program next weekend for like trainings and like emergency response, and also like support for refugees, aid workers, and volunteers in Lesbos, like a short intervention for what they go through the fire. So yeah, this is like on one hand, how much it's important, and then on the other hand, like this is a fight that you can't actually do this, because to do this you need people to allow you to do this, and this is the hard part for now.
Yeah, and obviously, I don't need to tell you, there's so much public stigma toward mental illness, let's say, whether it's depression or PTSD or anxiety. So on the one hand, it makes sense that there would be resistance among medical practitioners, let's say, to providing mental health treatment right away, as Humanity Crew does, which obviously you've described is very important to get treatment to these migrants and refugees as soon as possible. But it seems like you still meet a lot of resistance to that notion, and I'm curious if you have any thoughts on why that is, why so many NGOs, for example, or other organizations are so resistant to that mental health aspect.
I think it's because it reflects our daily life. It's not like something specific to the humanitarian world or to the to the displaced population or to Europe. No, it's actually the same resistance that we saw in the fire in California, and it's the same resistance that we saw in New York in any kind of accident that happened. People, even us, me and you, like when our kid is sick, you didn't think even 1 minute you will take your child and you will run to the ER or to the doctor. Even me as a psychiatrist, when I saw something that is related to mental health, or I will ignore it, which is most of the people will do, maybe me not, even me, I will delay this. Like we start, like, you're a man, don't cry, or like it starts from day zero. We have a resistance to mental health. The only one factor, it's not published, but it's something that I saw in like when I go through like some reports from the OECD countries, the one factor that was stable in all that tells like what the situation of the country, from like well-being, the happiness, like economics and stuff like this. The one factor that was stable all the time is the number of psychiatrists, and it's the number of people who approach a mental health support. Like as much as you approach mental health support, it doesn't say that you are a sick country or a psycho country. It's actually tells how healthy you are and how this reflects on your daily life. And this is something that actually now the upper class start to understand. Now psychiatrists start to be like the new plastic surgeons. Like, you say, oh, I have my shrink or I have my psychiatrist. It's like New York, even here, like it starts we start to have some kind of prestige, like to have a psychiatrist. Why? Because people with money and they understand the importance. It's like why they don't smoke and the rest still smoking. So the resistance is not against the Humanity Crew or something less. It's not because of NGOs fight, which is there's a lot of political, between NGOs. No, it's a very pure thing that comes from our home. And the funny thing, the super, which is really funny, the only one who doesn't have any kind of resistance to this, and the one side that really want this and ask for it, and it will tell you, I don't want the food or the blanket or the shelter, just give me this support, is the refugees and the people in crisis themselves. And it's actually the same what happened with us. When you are in a deep trauma, when you are traumatized or something, you want this, so it's actually a kind of resistance, because it's I say all the time, my war starts, or my fight, I hate words because we have a lot of here, but my fight starts even in my when I go do a talk in a high school about mental health, it's also will reflect on the refugees. It's part of the awareness, because this will reflect to the humanitarian world is actually a reflection of what we do in our life, and it's not the right thing,
I think you're right. I think there's so much resistance just as a species, like as humanity. We don't want to address those issues within ourselves, and we're very hesitant to admit those are things that we need to address. So we kind of need like a mass shift in consciousness and how we deal with mental health issues. But I also wanted to talk to you too. We kind of touched on, how you kind of meet people where they're at, on the shores to deal with that initial trauma. But you also do a lot of work in the refugee camps. Can you talk a little bit? I know there was an interview today where you discussed your inverted pyramid and how that sort of works in your process. Can you kind of explain that and how you develop that and how it works in this situation?
The idea behind the inverted pyramid, it was I tried to, there is the pyramid of what's that?
Maslow's
hierarchy.
Yes.
Yeah, Maslow's.
Yeah, so it was the same idea, but what I tried to do with this, I just like inverted, like, because I want to say, like, come on, like, it's not just to give names and to say things that it's common sense and etc. Like, you need to think about all these crises, especially when you're dealing with people in crisis, with displaced population, with refugees. It doesn't matter what the title is. For me, as a scientist, as a doctor, as a psychiatrist, all of them is the same. All of them is people dealing with traumatic experience. The body react to displacement, to car accident, to shooting, to anything as the same. It's the same hormones, it's the same fight or flight situation, it's the same reaction, and etc. So for me, everything is the same. So if we want to deal with situation like this, we need to understand the biology. We need to understand the neuroscience behind this. We need to approach it not in a way that, oh, I get a fund for psychosocial support. Let's do psychosocial support for kids. Who are you? Why are you going to do psychosocial? Go and do surgery for him, like if you got a fund. Why to treat mental health in a way that it's, oh, let's do psychosocial support. Now there is no more boats. Let's do psychosocial support. And why this should be like this? So it's because we don't understand that it's actually, there is a science behind it. It's a medical branch. You need to treat it and to come with an approach that it's actually science. So if you do this and you understand this, then you will invert the pyramid and it will be inverted. Because you need, first of all, to understand what the first thing that happens when people are actually activate their fight or flight system when they are in trauma. When they are in acute trauma and they are in fight or flight system, they will act as animal. It's an animal who wants to survive. An animal who wants to survive, he take care of his family member, biological family member, and he run away or he fight for death. This is the only thing. I never saw in 2015 in October even one boat that contained cousins and brothers and sisters with their families and large, nothing. And we are talking about communities like Syrian communities who are living in complexes of brothers, sisters, cousins, and everything. And when they flee the war, they were by themselves. Only the father, the mother, and the children, and that's it. There was no sister, brother, and the whole tribe. Why? Because of the trauma activate the surviving mode. You don't care about anything. The first feeling that the people were talking about when they recover from their journey, when they feel some kind of safety in the camps, it was guilt. Why? Because they stepped on the old lady, they didn't jump in the water to save this kid, and they were pushing everyone to survive. And when the fight or flight system shut down, they said, God, what I did, it's not me. In our culture, I need to support and to help as a humanity, how I did this. And then the second thing that he sought to tell himself, where is my tribe? God damn it, where is my cousins and families? Like in my wedding, I had like 1,000 people. Where are they? For people who coming from the East, we have a collective well-being. I am not like this. I am successful because of my 52 cousins that I saw maybe once a year, but they are part of my well-being. Because when I went back from Greece, totally destroyed. The first thing that I did, I just asked from my community back home in Kufr Yassif to do an event for me. All the village, thousands of people did this event. I found myself in a postcard of a Christmas postcard in my church. There was no Jesus that year. It was my picture because the priest said, the father said in the church that Jesus is everyone. And this year it's Essam. And all the money goes to me. I establish everything because of my community. So what I'm trying to say that the first thing that we lose when we are in trauma is the community, is the all together. And we become an animal. And this is what makes us different than animals, that I don't kill when I want to kill if I hate someone. I don't, do sex with a woman that I just like. It's not like this. We have norms, we have community, we share things, we support each other. And the first thing we lose it is this. So if you want to work with a community like this, the first thing you need to do is to create the community back.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why if you want to do anything with them, you don't need to send doctors and aid workers, and you need to send people who can create this community again. And if you to re-establish, because it's if you help the people to re-establish their community, then the community heals itself. That's it. You don't need anything else, because this is how things are happening in our life. And when the community helps itself, then it will be more easy for you to see if you have vulnerable groups. Then you go to the next stage on this inverted pyramid model to work with groups. Say, okay, now most of the problems are fine. Now let's say we have a small group of Yazidi, we have a small group of LGBTQ, we have a small group of single moms. So let's support them as a group. Let's do another small community. Then when you work with them, and in this stage, you need the professionals to be involved. In the first stage, you need only trained volunteers to do the community to rebuild it. Then from these groups, you actually, as professional, you can say, okay, I have these 20 young single mom, and I can say that Fatma and this and that, these three are actually not okay. They need to go one-on-one. So then you go to the last stage in the inverted pyramid to one-on-one. So when we did this model in the Avata, one of the biggest camps that time in 2016 in Greece, that actually in the mainland in the north of Greece, when they closed the border, and then a lot of camps was created in one day. So we enter this place, few volunteers, with no structure at all, only the army just making sure that these people will not get close to the city of Thessaloniki. No big NGOs, nothing. And how you can do this? 3,000 people. The first thing that we start to do is to create the community. And then you see that with a team of 10 people and only 3 or 4 from them are mental health professional, we succeed to provide all the mental health services that people need. Why? Because most of the problems was solved by the community, this is how we also solve our problems in our daily life. Then few were solved by the groups, and only 8%, which is the number that we know in literature, that refugees and displaced population, only 5 to 8% need like a real deep psychological, or they suffer from like a psychological or psychiatrist disorders, you found them. So it's not just only that you provide the whole service, You also build some kind of a referral system. You actually succeed to detect the vulnerable cases. And because the community did this for you with only 2 to 3 professionals. Because another funny fact, that the number of mental health professionals in refugee camps per 1,000 is higher than New York. Like, how many one per 1,000? It's not like there is like 3 or 4 to each 1,000. Like, it's too much. Like, in the whole Israel Palestine, there is up to 10 child psychiatrists, like Arab speakers, for almost 2 to 3 million Palestinians. We more, but not that much more, like another 10 to 20. So the problem is that there is no referral system, because there is no community, because we don't understand the science behind the trauma, and we deal with it as, okay, let's do activities. No, it's not like this. If you just understand why the situation like this, if you try to rebuild the community, then you will only need 2 to 3 as in a normal society. So this was the idea behind the inverted pyramid. And
I think it's kind of genius too. It's kind of genius too, because you kind of empower the community to help themselves, and then, like you said, you get to kind of fall down, you know, because there are limited numbers of doctors. So yeah, that's really a genius way to go about it. And you know, with Maslow's, Jesse and I were talking about this last night. You know, in the West, we're very self-centered. So you know, that might work for people in the West.
The well-being in the West it's based on the individual well-being. It's not something that it's not bad on good. It's different. There is good thing in this, and there is bad thing in this. But the West is based on the individual well-being. Sometimes I pray like every day to have some kind of this well-being. Why? Because I can't, like, it took me, I think, years until I succeed to move 30 minutes drive from my hometown. This is like, I know, like I succeed to disconnect from my 30 minutes. Like, and I know people in the States, when I travel, yeah, I born in Boston, then we moved to San Francisco. Now I went to Philadelphia, I'm just back to New York. I say, like, for an Arab man to do this, it needs like decades until I have to move 30 minutes drive from my parents. It took me. So there is good and bad in this. So the thing is, but what you just say, I think is the key thing. That this model is genius or nice, like, you know, I have this a lot. The problem is that what you say, that you are empowering the people. I will tell you a secret. No one wants them to be empowered, because if you empower the people, it's hard to control them. You don't want to empower them. You want actually to give them UNRWA. You know what UNRWA is? It's the private UNHCR. It's a refugee agency only for Palestinians. They did one for us, because this is how you can give them, stay home. I will bring you the food. Don't go fish. I will bring you the fish. This is how you can control 7 million people in refugee camps for 70 years. If you empower the people, they will ask for the right. You don't have time for the right. You don't have money. It costs money. It's much easy for you as a Western country actually to accept a refugee after it's like a dog that you take them to a trainer. It's much easier if you go through this 7 years in average of resettlement process. This is the average, 7 years. This 7 year, it's important because the professor will accept to drive the truck. This is what you need now. So he will accept it. And they will accept to do whatever you want. And they will accept not to have full rights. And they will accept to be manipulated by others and etc. Because if you empower them, they will ask for the rights, and rights cost money. So that's why it's much easier to control people like this. So if you are an NGO that try to empower people, they will kick you out, as they did in Fatah. The camp that we established and somehow that we help people that the army was calling us to shut down fights of thousands of people because we know how to approach people in community. We were kicked out by other lovely, lovely big NGOs. Why? Because they don't like the approach that we actually ask people to ask for their rights. When a refugee came to me and say, hey, doc, please, Hakim, بدي augmentin, I want an antibiotics. I say, sorry, that we are an NGO. I provide you with specific, it's mental health. So say, but what can I do? I have like infection or my kid or something, and Red Cross gave me this. I say, okay, go and ask from Red Cross or MSF, doesn't matter which medical organization gave you this, to give you also the pills. They say that they don't have, and I need to go to Thessaloniki. And it's not, maybe it's the medication is only 3-4, but I need like 30, 40 euros to go back and forth, like to the city of Thessaloniki. It's a lot. I don't have it. And I say, sorry, man, but these NGOs took a lot of money, not only to provide you the prescription, it's also to provide you the medication. Go and ask for your right.
Mm-hmm.
No, I say, go and ask for your right. And I say, okay. In the same moment, I go and I take my augmentin that I have on my bag as a doctor, and I gave it to Red Cross or MSF. And I tell them, look, I'm a psychiatrist, a psychologist. I can't give pills to people. I'm not authorized, or it's not ethical, Can you them to Abu Nash'at when he asked for this? I say, yeah, sure, no problem. Then a few hours later, I will see Abu Nash'at and say, hey, doc, look, I go there and I start saying, I need the pill. This is my right. He didn't say all of this. He just went there, said, I want the pills. They give it to them immediately because they have it from me. But he was so empowered that he felt that actually he went there and he will start, yeah, and I say, you need to give it to me. If not, I will. He didn't do all of this. He just asked and they gave it to him immediately. But this kind of act actually just empower him to do, some kind of, this is your right.
Mm-hmm.
Things like this made other NGOs to kick us out, to make like a coalition, go out. And we found us outside. So this is a price that we pay. Now we are more clever to do this in a way that we don't make others angry, because we understand if we continue like this, they will kick us out. And really, if I know that millions will see this video, I will not say this. I'm saying this because first I felt like it's a personal thing, and I know that it's not like a TED talk that millions will see this. And most of the people who will see this is people that I know that they are like you. So they will understand what I'm saying and nothing will happen to me. Because trust me, for things like this, from talks like this that I gave somewhere around, we pay the price from other NGOs and authorities. Unfortunately. So this is the problem with the inverted pyramid. It's not like it's a genius or not. It's a good one, I'm telling you. It's perfect. Nothing better than this. The problem is it's empowering people. And empowering this situation, it's a big no for everyone, for NGOs, for authorities, for everything. No.
Yeah, and that makes sense too, because if you think about it in the long term, if you're empowering people, then as an NGO, eventually there's no need for you to be there because people are recovering. And the whole point of an NGO is basically to be there. And I think a lot of times more so exploit what's happening as opposed to help what's happening. And I wanted to ask you, just, I guess, dialing it back a little bit, because a lot of people in the West especially don't know what's involved with, or the reasons why migrants and refugees are coming from Africa, North Africa, the Middle East to Europe. And a lot of that has to do with wars that this country has started, or countries like Libya, which the US essentially destroyed. And also the journey across the Mediterranean is brutal, and there are smugglers to deal with. Can you talk about a little bit about how just, again, brutal that whole ordeal is, because people in the West, a lot of whom I talk to, have this idea that migrants and refugees are just fleeing to Europe because they want to, it's this Orientalist perspective of they want to leech off the system or something silly like that.
So
but
it's somehow it's true. I have to tell you, like you need to divide the whole situation in Europe to many parts, because again, like if you don't really know the truth, and if you don't really control the the situation, you know everything about the situation, I think that you have a background noise from the
background.
Yeah, what is that? Hold on
Yeah.
a sec.
It stopped.
It's gone. It's
stopped.
okay. So if we keep saying that all the people are war survivor and they're fleeing war, then first it's not true. Then one will come and say, okay, but this one is not, and then everyone will believe him. And if you say that everyone is not fleeing war, then it's the same thing. I think it's very important really to know all the facts and to say, yes, there is big part, not even a small part these days. At the beginning, it was very small in 2015, 16, 17, that they are coming for searching for a good life, period. They are not fleeing war. They are coming and searching for a good life. Is it the rights or not? This is the discussion between right and left, between socialist and not socialist, and etc. And why they are doing this and this. And this part is mainly from Africa coming to Europe. And they mainly do the way from Libya through the Mediterranean to Malta or Italy, which is a brutal one, very dangerous. There is no chance to do this unless someone will find you. And this takes us to another issue of if the rescue boats is actually encouraging them to come by being there and rescue them. And if they leave, the rescue boat says, if we don't go there, no one will know what's happening there. The authorities said, if you go there, you are actually encouraging them. So it's no one have the right answer for this. From my side, we need to be there for sure. So, but on the other hand, why these young men, African men coming from, I'm not talking about people from Darfur, for example, or from Libya, about fleeing the militias and the war, like from Nigeria or from Gabon, and why? Because all the diamonds are in France. All the oil of Africa are in Europe. All the goods that comes from this continent is in Europe, and all the garbage of Europe are in Africa. So sorry, now it's different era. Now there is social media. I know what's behind the sea. In the 50s, 60s, it's hardly I have a TV in my village and I see what's behind. No, I see Paris. I want Paris. I know that France has nothing as a country. What they have? Oil? No. Diamonds? No. Farming? No. What they have? Wine and champagne. You can't do a country like this from wine and champagne. Sorry. Why they are like this? Because they have the petrol of Libya. Because we know that Sarkozy paid 50 million euro to support Gaddafi 2 months before he took him down. So, so why? So then I say, yeah, this is the right. As a socialist, as a left wing, someone in politics, go cross and ask for your diamonds. If you want to keep the young African in Africa, leave Africa by itself. Thomas Sankara in Chad, he was a socialist. He came to do something different in this country, and he was assassinated by CIA and the French special forces. Why? Because he said what's for Africa is for Africa, and they took him down in the 70s, if I'm not wrong. Mandela is the same. This is one part. This is the part that actually the media is covering much and talking about it. But this is one, but it's not the majority. Still the majority are coming from Syria, Iraq, Sudan, Yemen, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, and all these countries that it's war and war and war and war.
Yeah.
So And these people are fleeing war. They will say, okay, but stay in Turkey. Why? I am as a refugee, I will decide where I want to stay. Why in Turkey? Why I want to stay in Pakistan? I want to a better place if I can't stay in my country. And why these countries is like this? It's because Russia and the US are like two teenagers that fighting each other in Syria. The Afghanistan is the same. Once they use the Taliban to fight the communists, then they start fighting the Taliban. I don't know if you saw the article in the New York Times before like 2-3 weeks when they say that the war against the terror that Bush started and Obama continued this actually displaced something around 40 million people, if I'm not wrong, or something like this. So you say to yourself, God, this is the people who are fleeing, our kids and women and all, like it's not young men. And even though in the case of Africa, so yes, this is young men who are going for better life, as coming from Africa, but the people who are coming now and still coming from Turkey to Europe are people who are fleeing war, because being a refugee in the Middle East is not that good. They want, it's not like your situation. They saw the prototype or the classic situation of the Palestinians, 70 years are in the Middle East. So they say, no more. We don't want to be Palestine number 2 as Syrian. We don't want our UNHCR agency as UNRWA. No. So we will go to Europe. We will knock the door. And that's why we saw, listening about these issues. It's not that the refugee crisis, migrants, or the displaced population, blah, blah, all these names are something new. No. It's just because it's the first time that comes to the West. Unless it was the backyard problem, so we don't care. We actually we love it. Why? Because we did a nice laundry of our money and a nice laundry of our conscience, and we send our beautiful NGOs to help. And we, like, you send your airplanes to bomb and your army, you test your weapon, then you send your NGOs to this and your companies to build, and then you control. God damn it, like it's too much. It's too much to handle for people. Now people is different in the era of social media, and people knows more. So this is the price. And I'm all the time saying this and giving this, which is very funny that I'm using this as an Arab Palestinian. Jewish nation, the Jewish people came back to Palestine and they asked for the right of this country after thousands of years. Why? Because people all the time want to go back home. No one want to be a refugee. So just give the people a good home, they will go back to there. No one want to live in a very cold, almost no one knows anyone, that with a wedding of 5 people in north of Sweden. It's not funny. It's not good for a Syrian to live there. It's not the dream of my life to live there. I have now enough money as a young doctor to go up the Carmel Mountain in Haifa and live there. I tried it. The first time that I have my big salary as a doctor, I rent a house there. It took me less than 2 months to go back down to the Arab neighborhood. Why? Because there was no one screaming. No one say good morning in the morning. No one like say, hey neighbor, come drink coffee. Like, come on guys. Like, I couldn't survive there. Like, sometimes if I feel that I'm not okay, I open the window because I need to hear like voices and people around me and beep beep and stuff like this, because this is what makes you feel alive. So what I'm trying to say, trust me, no one from us, if I'm talking now in the name of the refugees, no one from us as an Arab from the Middle East want to be in Europe and the US. I want to be here. I like, just let me do just let me build my country as I want. The people of Egypt, beautiful revolution, but the US didn't like it. They say switch it back with Sisi. So, it's
that's the West. The West does that a lot. We like to create problems so that we can then sell the solution to the problem. That's kind of, what we're known for. So, but I think that that's a really good point, because so many people, I don't think, understand that these people who are coming from, Syria or Libya, it's not real, like that's not their life goal, to take this extremely dangerous journey to a foreign country where they don't speak the language and they don't know anybody. They're away from their family. They're leaving everything they've ever known behind. And in many cases, they're traveling with their children or with their elderly parents, and this is a very treacherous journey. This is not like a vacation. So this is not something that, these refugees, this is not like a life goal. It's not like they're wanting to go live in France for the rest of their lives. They would much prefer to stay in their home countries. But it's become so untenable that they can't even manage to stay anymore. It's no longer safe for them to do still. It has to be pretty bad to risk that kind of a journey, to get to safety. So I think a lot of people miss that, and they think that, and a lot of it is because of the propaganda narrative in Western media. We're sold this version of the refugee and what their goals are and their intentions are. And, we're all told that they're, like you said, they're these young African men who are coming to, take over our cities and our towns. And so I think a lot of people have been kind of brainwashed into this narrative of what a refugee is and what their intentions are. So, I just think that's a really important point to make, that this is not, a journey that's made lightly. It's not something that, I think if you just sit and think about yourself, would you want to leave everything you've ever known behind to go to a completely foreign country where you don't know anyone or even the language? I mean, that's terrifying just to think about.
They pay money to do this, and I say no. They have a lot of, some kind of suggest, come and work here or take like a position in this university. Or I say it's like really nice. A lot of them, I say, I just try to imagine not seeing my family or my neighbor. I say, no, why? No, I'm fine, So the thing is, it's much easy also from our side not to make this mistake. If we continue to say that it's a West against the East, because this is how actually they want us to show this. Mm-hmm. It's the Islam against the Jewish, the Palestinians against the Israelis. And no, it's not like this.
A clash of civilizations like Samuel Huntington tried to put forth.
Yeah, I have tens of Jewish friends that I will not replace with any Palestinians all over the countries. But it's about ideology, it's about politics, it's about people and policies and etc. It's not that the West people are bad. No, if the West people will know all the information and everything, I'm pretty sure they will not be saying like this. But when a refugee make a crime and rape someone or did anything bad, it will be a headline. But guys, yes, from 1 million refugees with all the trauma, the percentage of the criminal acts is actually still lower than the criminal acts of the normal population. So they rape, they kill, they do many bad things. There's bad people there. So, but this is how we show everything and how we put the light. And again, it's in the 28th of October 2015. It was a very major day for me. This was a big shipwreck, 400 people, 200 people lost their life, 57 confirmed death of kids, dead bodies in the car. It was the end of the first mission. Our brain burnout, really, is the hardest day in my life. But this is the day that I understand that this is bigger than me. Because at the end, after 6-7 hours of a rescue mission, where we risked our life and we cried and we were totally destroyed, we were sitting with my friends, the group of rescuers, lifeguards from Catalonia, Open Arms. And we were in this small tavern at Pari Place, a Greek angel that took care of all of us. And there was the TV in front of us, and there was a great rescue mission of the Greek Coast Guard, 236 people rescued, something like this. And all of us getting we were totally crazy, we get angry. And it wasn't because they took the credit from us. No, it's not that part of the sentence. It was the part that 236 people rescued. Because in this headline, they didn't tell you in the West that 182 people lost their life in that night. So for you, it was just a positive headline, and it circulate all over the world, and you don't remember even that you saw this. But if that headline was 182 people lost their life while trying to cross the seas, and they saw the pictures of the dead bodies in my hand, it's the same picture of the kid Halayan and all of these pictures that make people, I have tons of them in my phone, tons of them, of dead bodies. They didn't show you this. This is how they control the media. And then I remember all of us, we look like this at the photographers, because they were there that worked with AP and Reuters and CNN. They were there, the Ivy League, all of them were like 3 Pulitzers. And we say, hey, why it's like this? Santi, Nezo, like we like, why you are afraid? They say, guys, welcome. You're still young. There is editors of editors. Trust me. I send them all the pictures, everything, but we don't control it. There's a big brother for this.
And I often reference him in our shows, but I think he's worthy of continuing to reference. Robert Fisk has said many times, the journalist Robert Fisk, the British journalist, he said that he's talked about the same thing, about sending reports or photographs, or having colleagues who've sent video footage of massacres, for example, in Iraq, especially when in the early days when the US was just going ballistic and slaughtering people in the streets. And he would get the same response from editors: we can't run this. They're going to puke up their breakfast or whatever, and we have to show respect for the dead. And he always says, well, you didn't respect them when they were alive. How can you say that you're going to respect them now? And it's sort of that perspective of looking at them as lesser humans, and also that in the West, it's always uncomfortable to deal with death and war and refugee crises, but
it's an excuse not to do this,
right?
Don't want to show the death, we respect them, and etc. But on the other hand, they don't have a problem to show them begging for food and a white man give them the food and taking a selfie with this, which is like equal to porno. So I think that unfortunately it's bigger than us. This is why
it's propaganda. I mean, since Vietnam, people in the West are not shown real images of war. We're no longer shown that. They'll show us the missiles being shot off, but we don't get to see where they land. So a lot of war has been whitewashed and has been, prettied up, and a lot of that is so that they continue to manufacture consent for these wars. It's harder to do when you're showing pictures of bodies. That makes people upset. So if you want to continue to, go and start these wars, you have to, keep that out of the view of the public, so that those people, don't start an anti-war movement and they don't fight back against it. So a lot of that is, and you're right, it is so much bigger than any one of us. I talk about it all the time. Narrative control and fighting back against propaganda is one of the biggest issues that we face on the globe. Every single one of us. It impacts all of us. So, being able to kind of combat these false narratives that were sold is such a crucial point. It really is.
Yeah, and it trickles, for lack of a better term, it trickles down or into the U.S. as well. You have refugees and migrants coming from Latin America, for example, and it's the same attitude is given toward them, that they just want to come here to take advantage of everything great America supposedly has to offer. And there's such a resistance among so many Americans I talk to the idea, to the truth that as you said, Essam, nobody wants to be a refugee. Nobody wants to leave their home. And point being, it's not just a problem that's happening in North Africa and the Middle East and the Mediterranean. It's happening in the US as well. And I don't know exactly what there's xenophobia for sure, but there's a huge resistance to migrants and refugees, and they're essentially seen as parasites, to put it.
I will tell you an example. I think that it will answer your question why. A year ago exactly, Maria, my wife and the CEO, received a royal award from the King of Spain, Felipe. And the ambassador of Spain came to the office here in Haifa to deliver like an official letter from the king, like something like royal things they have to do. And we were like official and talking, and we were very exciting. And then I told the ambassador, I told him, do you know that actually until now Spain received most of the refugees to Europe, like by numbers, more than Italy, more than Greece and everything. And I didn't know that.
Italy has most recently been turning ships away, correct? And
also Greece now just did it a few days ago. And I said, like, really, I just figured out this time, like recently, and I told him, like, wow, great, like, why no one knows about that? Why, like, nothing is happening there? Like, look, Salvini in Italy, he's like fighting everyone in Greece, and the writing. And they said because in Spain, the right-wing, parties and some other like parties, they try to take advantage of this. They started, well, refugees coming to our doors and stuff like this. Then nothing happened in the election. So they just forget about it and they move to something else. Like there was no political gain from this. So he said, no, this thing is in responsibility of the Coast Guard and the government, and they actually doing the rescue. And if people need to be sent back, they send them back. If they are really need to ask for asylum, they respect this and they continue. Almost no death. Most of the situation are controlled. And they have the largest number that comes to Europe compared to all other European countries, and nothing happened. Why? Because actually the Spanish people didn't really, there was nothing, like no political gain for politicians from this. So nothing happened. What's happening in the US, that you have a president that actually part of his campaign and part of the of his campaign was, we will build a wall, we will make them pay, we will. So he saw that the day after that he had more points in the polls and etc. So there was a political gain. So do it. On the other hand, which is funny, most of his people, his workers that work for his companies, like in Trump companies, and are immigrants and people coming from Latin America. So then you understand that actually he needs him, but he needs him also as a political gain. So that's what I'm trying to say. It's not why it looks like this, because there is a party or a political thing, a media thing, that so that there's a political gain from this, and then political gain, main power, main thing, then it translated to money, and they use them. And the numbers of people who are coming from Latin America to the States didn't change the last few years. This is something that happened. My aunt came from Bolivia, to the States, married with my uncle. So it's not like something new like in Europe. But there's a president that he tried something. He has like a political advisor. He say, hey, Trump, look, try to attack the immigrants thing. Let's see what going to happen in the polls. He did it once. Oh, we got high. So this is a good topic.
His name is Stephen Miller.
He has one, really?
Yeah. Stephen Miller, who's actually
Stephen Miller is one of the worst people on earth. He's terrible.
Now in Israel, the prime minister attacked the doctors. He said doctors need to help, like the doctors who are working in the private sector need to work the public sector, and if they not, we will activate like military laws that will enforce them. And everyone said, God, no one asked from us, and we didn't say no, and we were ready to do this, and we actually suggest to do this, and was no need, and actually there is no crisis that they need us. Why he did this? Because attacking this kind of population, like the doctors who work in the private sector, is something that they are prestige or rich or something. This will actually make his political followers, who are actually coming from a poor side, and like Trump style, it's the same thing. It actually will make him vote more for him. In the middle of a pandemic, he found the right time to attack the doctors in the country with no reason. Why? There was a huge reason, because will make his people feel that this is a fight between rich and poor, and he is the poor. I don't know how, but this is how every time here. So this is why immigrants, refugees in the US, now this is the situation, because there's someone who looks like them. And if things will change, you will see that this will be down from the media, and that's it. And nothing will happen, and they will continue come, and people who really need help will be helped, and if not, they will get sent back, and the same situation.
Yeah, can you talk about in the intro, obviously I said that you are Palestinian and you live in Haifa right now. Can you talk about what's happened with the Palestinians over the last 70 years and how they've been, for example, Gazans have essentially been made refugees in their own country. And I suppose you could say the same for the occupied West Bank as well. Can you talk about how, or if at all, that history has affected your approach toward helping refugees?
Oh, there's nothing that you can, like, if I say that they didn't affect me at all, or affect me a little bit or something, it will be a lie, even if I'm not aware of this. Even if I don't have like a nice answer telling you exactly how it affected my life. Being a Palestinian is linked with refugees. This is the story that you live this narrative from day zero. That your family mom's side it's out of the country, that her didn't know her uncles, that her cousins there, that her brother in the States, and one in Jordan, and one in Kuwait, and one in London, that my dad family stayed here after the war, and they didn't become refugees, and the jokes from my dad to my mom that, oh, you don't have anyone here, or something like that. This is something that we live. Or even the village. Oh, the eastern neighborhood. The eastern neighborhood, it's actually where the refugees are. Like, we are also sometimes, racist against each other. This is like the people of several Palestinian villages have been destroyed in 48, and they actually became, like, they moved from these villages and become refugees or displaced in their own country, in our village that wasn't destroyed in 48, and etc. So this is our life, we live this day by day. In my situation, in terms of life, conditions, we are the best, because we actually stayed in our villages in 48 after the war. Because after the war, the Israelis don't have enough time to destroy all the Palestinian villages and to push the people out and make them refugees. So, and the war just get involved, and the war was stopped. And so several villages stayed around Israel, what became Israel in 48. One of them, for example, like my village, called Kufr Yasif. It's a mixed village between Arab Muslims, Arab Christian, and Arab Druze, and we used to have Jewish in the past. And Haifa city, which was an Arab city, then become a mixed city until now. So after and then the West Bank was taken by the Jordanian custody, like after 48, and Gaza was with the Egyptian after the 48 war. And the rest of Palestine became Israel. And we, as a Palestinians who stayed in their villages, and also the refugees who came from a neighborhood villages, we were under military regime until the 67 for like 20 years. Then after another war, the Palestinians inside Israel, like my dad was 20 that time, they understand that it's a lost case and nothing can happen. And after the 6-day war, when Israel also won the war against all the Arab countries and occupied the Golan Heights and the West Bank from Egypt and Gaza from the Egyptian, and also Sinai, which
they're Trump
yeah. So then we become an Israeli citizen, and we took the citizenship, and we become part of the country. But we still keep our tradition and schools and language and everything. And that's why I am a Palestinian who can travel. I'm actually traveling with the Israeli passport. I am actually an Israeli doctor. Propaganda for both sides. The Israeli doctor is not a lie. I'm an Israeli doctor, but I'm Palestinian. It's a mix. So, but on the other hand, after the 67 and the 6-day war, it became a problem because Israel, when took the West Bank and Jerusalem from Egypt in 67, the term the occupied territory born, because what they called the 67 line or borders, because it was with the Jordanian, then it became with the Israeli, and then Gaza also. And then they start the Intifada in the 80s and etc. And then they bring back Gaza, or they go out from Gaza and they put a siege on it, which is a 12-year, which is I think it's the most catastrophic thing that happened to humanity. One day they will talk about it. I don't think that this is something that you cannot hide in the history. You can't, because you are talking about 3 million people in a place which is smaller than New York or bigger than the same size, that they are. They don't have flights. They have nothing. They can't go out or in. No borders all around, and they are in one place, which is unbelievable. Outside, you have the West Bank that was Intifada, blah blah, all of this, which is catastrophes and camps, and then Oslo that destroy everything. I think now they have a corrupted. Palestinian Authority that control people like a dictatorship. There's a president that he's almost 90, that he last time has been elected before 10, 20 years, and he didn't have an election since then. And this is how they control it there, by corruption. So actually now there is no Palestinian. That's why, Trump and his brother-in-law can do whatever they want, and Emirates and Bahrain sign an agreement, because there is no Palestinian leadership, there is no Palestinian cause, not because there is no people and there is no suffering. It's because the Gaza people are under siege, no one can hear them. The people in the West Bank, the Palestinian, like the occupied territory, the Palestinian Authority is run by corrupted people, and the people here inside Israel are, fighting to live as a class W citizen. So, and the refugees in Jordan and in Lebanon are in a bad situation. So this is the situation. Now I think that this is the worst time ever for the Palestinian cause. That situation. I don't think that there is any kind of a recovery from this point. I can't see it.
I agree.
Yeah, especially with the COVID-19 situation, that you can pass laws and no one's really care about these issues, and nothing with the media, with the propaganda, with the narrative, nothing,
Yeah, and there are still so many people who either don't know, or they just want to continue to push the narrative of the two-state solution, which at this point is impossible. If you look at the West Bank and Area C, for example, with its illegal colonies, you look at huge settlements like Ma'ale Adumim, right?
It's an apartheid state. There's only one state with an apartheid state regime or nothing, you can't do it. They understand this, but they don't care. It's like no one's really care, And that's why I'm all the time making jokes, even about my Jewish friends here in Israel. I told them, You can't ask for the rights of animals as as someone who is like vegetarian, or the rights that you want to take down Netanyahu because he is not respecting the law, or like he trying to be a dictatorship, while you are not talking about the basic rights of other people who share the land with you. You can't, ideology and ethics cannot be divided, or you will be and fully ethic in everything. Like, you never can say that I am a Palestinian and I have a good cause, but I want to push back all the Jewish back to the sea or to Europe to go. No, if you can't be both. No, you can't. You are the same thing like them. You can't say like this. In this situation, after 70 plus years, there's Jewish people that this is their home. I can't take them out. Like, they born here. They have no other place. It's not 48. I'm fighting with someone. So no, it's a place that we need to share, and also we need to give a solution for people who left and they want to go back. So it's complicated, and I think that now they are giving solutions that is good for the short term, and Jewish, or I don't think it's not Jewish because it's a religion. I think the Israeli will pay a very heavy price in the long term. My dad once he still tell me this. He used to say, he told me that once we used to respect the Israeli leadership in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 80s. They were clever. They were brutal, but they were clever. You respect your enemy. Now he say, like, they're brutal, but they're stupid. Like, they control me. I can't do nothing by power. But they can't see that they are actually leading their country and everyone, including us, to a very bad situation, and everyone will pay the price. And this is what's happening now. And now the people in Israel start to raise up and to understand, oops, really? That we enjoyed the situation and we were like quiet for 20 years. For not doing anything when we saw that rights of minorities were taken and we were quiet. Now we are paying the price, because then it comes to us, and this is the problem. When you don't do anything, when it comes to others, then it will come to you. And you can do this also to refugees. When you say, no, this is what the situation with the refugee, you will be a refugee one day. You will need this. And I will finish with one thing, which is like funny facts. You know, if you move from the US, you, a white American, and you move to be a writer in Paris, okay? How they will call you?
I don't know, maybe a Pied Noir.
No, they have a expat, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what
it's a white refugee. It's a white immigrant. It's white immigrants. Look at it. It's the same thing. White African
occupied Algeria were called Pied Noir, I believe, which basically means like I guess literally like new feet, you know, so they're obviously not Algerian. They're not from Algeria. They're colonizers. But yeah, I think that's, there's expat as well, but I think that.
Yeah, but the thing is that when you are white and when you are coming from the right background, then they will not look at you as a young male that coming to take something from the country. They will look at you as an expat. But an expat is actually an immigrant, but with the right skin color and the right passport. There is difference between a young African writer or a painter or an artist who took a boat and tried to reach Italy because he wanted to live where Michelangelo is living and he did art. Then a New Yorker artist who moved to Milano. The thing is, the one who moves from the States will be expat, and they will look at him differently, and they will welcome him. And the one who coming from Africa, they will push him back, and they will look at him as someone who comes to take the job and rape the women and kill and do this and this and this. So at the end, This is the whole difference. All of us are immigrants or refugees. The thing is what your skin color and what's your background.
Mm-hmm.
And this will be the difference between if you will be an immigrant and they will kick you out, or you will be an expat.
Mm-hmm.
And that again comes back to narrative, because that's the narrative that we're just fed. If you're brown or black, then you're lesser than, and that's just part of the narrative that we're sold and part of the propaganda campaign that is sold to everyone. Especially in the West, though. The propaganda machine in the West is very effective. They're very good at what they do. So their ability to frame these situations in such a way is really something that we're going to have to come to terms with and learn to fight back against if we hope to solve any of these problems. We have been going for a little over an hour and a half, though, and I appreciate you being so generous with your time. Jesse, do you have any other questions before we wrap up and let him head off for the rest of his day or night, maybe?
Just one more question before we let you go, Essam. What is Humanity Crew currently working on, and what do you have planned for the future? Because I know since we last spoke, which was about 2 years ago, it's expanded a lot. And what are some of the developments that are taking place?
So now the thing is that we expand, and we understand that expanding is not that good sometimes, because we found ourselves like doing a wide thing for a wide population. And what we decide now in the last year and a half, and we in some kind of a transit situation, we do the transformation, is to really narrow the service that we do, which is only to first response mental health intervention, not working in camps or in long-term intervention, but as a mental health rescuers. On the other hand, to expand the population we work with, not only displaced people and refugees, but also people who are people in crisis, floods, earthquakes, and etc. We're still in the middle of this. We're still exploring this. We did few missions as mental health rescuers. It works. We're trying to develop some models. So we are in a situation that we are like, in terms of what we are planning for over 5 years, is really to focus in mental health first response, because this is where actually the huge lack of services, which does not exist, and actually, as I say, there is the huge benefit if you do this in the right time, and to translate the knowledge that we acquired from working with refugees to everyone. In terms of projects, next week, in the end of October this year, we'll be starting our project with UNHCR in Brazil, in the border with Venezuela. It's not our. It's like the first international mission, because we work international since day one, because we work in Europe and we are based in Asia. Mm-hmm. But Europe in somehow become our home. This is like this is where we start. So it's not really felt for us international, or like when we expand from Greece to Italy to Germany to the middle. So it keeps for us. It was the same. So actually, this is the first time that we in somehow like. Go overseas, and it's also a request from UNHCR Brazil, which is also like some kind of acknowledgement from other NGOs and big NGOs, or to provide this service. So now we will start it with online because of the COVID-19, and then we have a next phase, and we have projects in Turkey. We are establishing our operational arm in Gaza due to the siege, so we are building a team there that will be operating from next year. In Greece, we have our online services that grow up really well in the last year. So this is like the situation now. There's a lot of cuts and shortage in funding. A lot of people cut the funds, and we totally understand. I don't know if we totally understand them. They're still billionaires. So I don't think they need to really freak out if 1-0 will disappear, but still, they freak out. So I hope that when situation will calm down, people will will go back to fund this kind of situation. We had I can't announcement, but I took part in a big project with a big production company with the big names behind it about the importance of mental health. It will be published. It will be in Apple TV, hopefully in January, February next year. I can't announce what kind of a project this, but it's supposed to be big. So I hope this will also bring more awareness to the importance of mental health and some kind of focus on our work and help us in fundraising and expanding and etc. So yeah, this is us. Yeah.
That's awesome. And actually, one more question. This is just out of my curiosity, more so than anything else. But as a psychiatrist and psychologist, do you follow a specific method or methodology? Like, are you a Jungian or a Freudian?
No. This is actually a very it's curiosity, but I think it's maybe the most important question you ask whole interview, like in terms of the professional aspect of our work. As I said, because everyone is doing whatever he wants in mental health, there is like endless methodologies, there's endless approaches. Like there is no law, even the US, that will forbidding you from saying that you have JC methodology for well-being, and you open a school and you give people certification and they can open clinics and help people. This is the only branch or field in medical practice that you can do this. And that's why in one hand, we follow Freud that used to sleep with his patients and do coke, and there was fine with this. In one hand, he gave a lot of good things, but on the other hand, come on, this is really our prophet, and somehow.
Right.
And the other hand, all these kind of methodologies, or it was made and like ages ago with no evidence-based science behind it, or it's just disconnected from the field and from the culture and from the people, and made by rats and running in maze in a lab in Washington or in Stanford, and nothing more than this. And then it say, oh, this is how trauma. Like, come on, like. I went to a workshop for like a big professor that worked with, had like $8 million budget for his lab for like refugees, without mentioning names. And he was like saying blah blah blah. I say like, come on, like man, like it can't be true. I asked him like, or he's dumb or he didn't know anything about refugees. And I say can't be dumb, but he's a professor. Most probably he's very clever. I think he didn't even visit once a refugee camp. So I just raised my hand and I asked him. He say, yeah, I have been 5 times. I say, yeah, like how like in total days? Like, no, like the longest one was 3 days in Lebanon before. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like you are the one who's doing the research for these NGOs, and you're like, and all your big name, I pay money for your session because you are like expert in displacement, and you have been totally 10 days, which is like my vacation in one of the camps. So because nothing like this is how things is. So there is no methodology that we follow. But on the other hand, that's why we are having our research. We have a nice partnership. It's not nice, a very important partnership with Cornell University. And now we are hopefully doing a nice big project in Wisconsin, in Madison University, in the psychology department, because even the inverted pyramid and etc. and all these, I never publish it, or I never say like this is how you should work. Like, this is our model. We test it. We have data. We look for research partners to come, and only when it's an evidence-based, we will come and publish it. And when we do it, we tell the people. That's why we collect data, because I don't want to try things on people. But on the other hand, I will not use Freud, or I'll not use any kind of methodology that is out of context. Sorry. I am the psychiatrist. I am the ex-refugee. I am the one who have the same culture and have the language and in the field. No one knows better than me to help these people. So I will not be creating models. I will be developing models with collaboration with others. So yes, we are working in this. We want to do ours. It's not ours. If there's something worse, we adapt it, and we rely on other methodology that is working. But no, it's a very big mess, big mess in terms of mental health for refugees. Like, there is nothing. This is actually was the first research that we did with Cornell University. They did a field research that they checked with all NGOs, big NGOs, what kind of guidelines they follow, and it was like like 60 something guidelines. And then when they go for the field part, they went to Lesbos, and I told them, you know, like, you interview the people in the office in IRC, like in New York or in this and this, they didn't know that they're, you know, to the third year social worker they hire from Greece to work in the camps, they didn't know anything about this guy. And when they interview him, he actually didn't know nothing. Like, so even with the 62 something, models or guidelines that people say we follow, at the field, zero. Like, it's not like 0. No one like follow anything. So yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, and also to confine people to a number of guidelines, to 62 guidelines, it's so constricting, and it's so provincial, if you will, because, you know, nobody is just about 62 guidelines. We're all complex human beings with different likes and dislikes and loves and hates, and to take that sort of clinical approach, I think, clinical being not meaning medicinal, but clinical as in, again, confining everybody to these 62 guidelines, it just seems doomed from the start, because again, we don't just boil down to 62 guidelines. So
no, I totally agree. It's more than this. It just it's a more complicated than just 62 or 1 or something. It's first, you need to understand that you are dealing with human beings, with a soul, with a mind, with a spirit. You need to respect them. You need to see them as equal. You need to celebrate their strength. You can't deal with them. You can't treat yourself by helping them. You know, who's the one that come all the way, leave everything, and work for years in a camp, unless you have no meaning back home? Well, like me, I admit, I was just a psychiatrist, you know, suppressed by the majority in this country, cannot express myself. I know that I am good, brilliant, but my boss just kept pushing me back, doing nothing, and he don't want me to grow up. And I will find it somewhere else. So you know, unless we don't see the crisis of others as an opportunity, nothing will change. The problem is that the refugee crisis, it's an opportunity for us as aid workers and NGOs and grassroots, big NGOs, doesn't matter. It's an opportunity to raise money for a career, for an NGO. It's an opportunity. 4 or 5 years, you will never ever imagine that you will interview me. Why? Nothing happened. You now interview me. So it's actually a benefit. And this is, you need all the time to remember, did you cross the line? This is a question that I ask myself did I cross the line and now I am taking advantage of the refugees? The answer is yes. A lot of nights, the answer is yes. If I ask this question the day after, I will not fix it. The problem is not all people ask this question. That's why it was hard to find a time to talk with me, because I don't get a salary from this work. I have my practice and I do. When I travel to Greece or to anywhere else, I'll lose a lot of money. And I have a family. That's why now I travel less, because I have a baby at home. At the beginning, it was only me or my wife, so we don't care if we have like an old car. But when we have a baby, my wife came and said, Essam, we can't have this car. You know, we need like airbags and stuff. And I said, oops, yeah, that's right. To have a good car, you need to pay money. To pay money, you need to work. Two options, or to take money from working with refugees, but then it will be my work. Then I need this crisis to continue so I can have the brand new car for my baby. Oh, no, it's a yes. So no, dear, I don't want. So we can have a car, but I will work more in other places and I'll find more opportunities. I'm not saying that people who get money or paid from this work, they are the bad guys, but it's a very complicated situation. You find the resource of funding that is not relay on the crisis of others. And I think it's a big problem in the humanitarian world that you can fund yourself only if there's a crisis happening for others. So it's another topic which is, I think it's also like it's a lot of thoughts in my mind thinking about it all the time. But yeah, for me, I will never be working and doing this, never, like as a work, and like only this. Yeah, sometimes I get paid here and there if I go for a long, mission or something, but never, because then it's normal that to keep the situation as it is, because I have baby at home, and my baby truly is more important than all the babies in the world. So,
well, we certainly appreciate your work and the work that Humanity Crew has been doing, and it's refreshing and inspiring that there are people like you out there who are thoughtful and insightful and generous and empathetic. So it does provide a sense of hope, I think, to those of us who pay attention to geopolitics and Western hegemony and basically how the West has been plundering the rest of the world for what seems like forever now. So it's again, it's good to know that you and your wife and the rest of Humanity Crew are out there doing the work that you're doing. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Our guest today has been Dr. Essam Daod. He's, again, a Palestinian psychiatrist, psychotherapist, medical doctor, and human rights activist. He resides in Haifa, Israel. He and his wife, Maria, co-founded Humanity Crew, which is an international aid organization that focuses on providing mental health, first responder mental health to migrants and refugees, particularly in Europe. But as Essam said, they're going to be overseas soon in South America. And you can watch, we'll link to this in the show notes, you can watch Essam's 2018 TED Talk, which I highly recommend, in which he breaks down much more concisely than I can Humanity Crew's important work. And
I'm also linking to the website as well. So if anybody would like to learn more or perhaps donate to the cause, we'll make sure all of that stuff's in the show notes so people have that available to them as well.
Right, and you can follow Essam on Twitter as well. We'll put his Twitter handle up in the show notes. So Essam, thank you so much for joining us today. It was great to talk to you face to face.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.